Hey folks, welcome to the midweek roundup. This is Ride and Thrive, and we've got a blistering few days racing for you to cover on the Tour de France. And we're going to start on Monday, which was stage 3. Now, this was Valenciennes to Dunkirk, and this was supposed to be a nailed-on bunch sprint. However, it was far from it in the end, as ecstasy turned to agony for Jasper Philipsen. So the winner at the weekend of a fantastic stage, and Alpecin de Koning were on a high. He ended up crashing out in a sprint for some intermediate points about 60 kilometres from the line. He went down really heavy. Another rider just rode into him. It totally wasn't his fault. And he went over the handlebars and went down really hard. And he broke his collarbone, unfortunately. And that's him out of the race. That was done and dusted. So how did it pan out? Well, there was a sprint for the line in the end. However, there was a few more crashes along the way, and some big names went down. And Geraint Thomas was one of them. Thankfully, got up and back on his bike. But the overall sprint came down to two riders, and they were Jonathan Milan and Tim Merlier. So Milan from Little Trek and Tim Merlier from Soudal Quickstep. And it was an out-and-out sprint, and Merlier just took it by the skin of his teeth. It was like the width of a tyre. So he took the sprint, leading stage 3. So that left Mathieu van der Poel still in the yellow jersey going into stage 4. Jonathan Milan took the green jersey, and Tim Wellens took the polka dot jersey into stage 4. The white jersey still with Vauquelin of Arkea B&B for the Young Rider Award. That was an action-packed day, and it was a fantastic day. Now, subsequently, there were some yellow cards handed out. As far as I'm aware, Brian Cockard from Cofidis, he kind of came into Philipsen, and at the time, the commentators said it was just a racing incident, but the commissars have seen it a little bit differently. And they've given him a yellow card, which is like a warning. So they got a fine as well. So it's basically like in football where you get a yellow card. It's just like getting a warning. So that took us on to stage 4, which was a somewhat hilly route. And it was 174 kilometres. It kind of could have been a sprinter's day. However, the finish was uphill. Now, it wasn't a mountain stage finish, but it was just enough uphill to think that actually maybe the sprinters aren't going to be up for this, and it's going to be more maybe the GC guys that are going to show the hand. And that was the case in this particular stage. So the finish was in Rouen, and it was the big three, Mathieu van der Poel and Pogačar and Vingegaard, that went for it with a couple of kilometres to go. They were kind of trading blows going up the climbs. Vingegaard ended up getting dropped, and it was Mathieu van der Poel and Pogačar that were sprinting to the line uphill, absolutely balls to the wall, and it was Pog that just took it on the wheel from Mathieu van der Poel, sort of reversing the placings from the other day when Van der Poel got the better of him in the sprint. And this was a significant win for Pogačar. It was 100 stage career wins for him, which is a really good milestone for the young rider. Still only, 26, something like that, 27. So unfortunately, that didn't give him the yellow jersey, Pog. It was Mathieu van der Poel kept it with the same time, but on count back, he kept the yellow jersey. Green was still with Jonathan Milan, and the polka dot was with Pog this time because he took some of the King of the Mountains points. So that was stage 4. Now, stage 5 can sometimes be a little bit boring, but they can offer up a little bit of a shock this early on in. And we did have a little bit of drama today on stage 5, which was a time trial, and it was in the northern town of Caen, and it was quite a flat course, 33 kilometres, and Remco Evenepoel was the kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? The favourite for this one, and it turns out he did win with the best time. However, Pogačar put in a really, really good stint, and he came out just 16 seconds down to come second overall on the stage. A really good effort from Pogačar. Unfortunately, Vingegaard, he was the loser, the big loser on the day. And he ended up losing 1:05, 1 minute and 5 to Pog. So yeah, that was a really big... And I'm looking into why that was the case. Now Vingegaard was said in the press conference the other day that he'd been doing a lot of training. He put weight on. And a lot of it was muscle. And his power numbers were up. So everyone was expecting Vingegaard to actually really ace this today and really put some time into Pog, and that just wasn't the case. So I'm going to try and get to the bottom of that and see why that was. There's some talk about, was the equipment faulty or anything like that. So that will probably come out in the wash a bit more. They're keeping a little bit tight-lipped about it at the moment. So that has led us. That was stage 5. So with that second place, Tadej Pogačar actually took the yellow jersey. And with that, he took all 3 jerseys. So he actually holds yellow, green and polka dot jersey. Evenepoel is 3rd overall now, the GC. Second overall on the GC, down 42 seconds. And Valkalen is now 3rd, which puts Vingegaard down to 4th place in the GC. So it's a significant loss for him today. Really, he is really going to have to pull out something special to get this time back, because he's just leaking time now, the odd seconds here and there. So Pog's just going to stick on his wheel the whole time. So we'll see how that pans out. Vingegaard is now down 1 minute 13 overall on Poggy. So that leads us on to stage 6. Now, stage 6 is, I'm just reading off my notes here. Stage 6 is Bayeux. Starts in Bayeux, the famous Bayeux Tapestry. We went there actually last year on holiday. It's very nice. And it's 200 kilometres, and it's a hilly route again. So, we're thinking it could be a sprint again, or it could be one for the GC. There might be a breakaway. Quite often on these long days, they do have a breakaway. But the breakaways aren't being up to much at the moment. And a lot of people at the moment, or a lot of the riders, just kind of couldn't be bothered to get off in a breakaway because they put all the effort in just to be caught by the peloton with 20 Ks to go. So we'll see if there's a breakaway. But it might be the GC riders. Maybe Vingegaard's going to make a move. You never know. But certainly Remco, Mathieu van der Poel is going to be up there. And, of course, the omnipresent Tadej Pogačar. So, of course, they're going to have it in the legs from the TT. So, that might factor in on the hills. The TT course can take it out of them. So, but we'll see. So, we'll keep an eye on that. And I'm going to report back again on Friday with the next roundup of stages 6 and 7, and also a preview of what's to come at the weekend. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this little roundup, and until Friday, bye for now.